What happens when a Hollywood icon decides he doesn't need a director anymore? In the middle of shooting the Outlaw Josey Wales, Clint Eastwood did something almost unheard of. He fired the man in charge and took over the film himself. But this wasn't just about creative control, it was personal. And what followed would spark one of the biggest rule changes in Hollywood history. By the mid-1970s, Clint Eastwood wasn't just a rising star, he was already a Hollywood powerhouse. After the success of Dirty Harry, High Plains Drifter, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Eastwood had proven he could dominate the box office with his signature blend of grit and stoic charm. But now, he wanted more than just screen time. He wanted authorship. That's where the Outlaw Josey Wales came in. Eastwood had discovered the novel, originally titled Gone to Texas, and was captivated by its raw, revenge-driven story. It was darker and more complex than most westerns of the time, and Eastwood saw something in it that felt personal. He championed the project from the beginning, personally acquiring the rights and pushing Warner Brothers to greenlight it. To him, this wasn't just another cowboy flick. It was a chance to shape something meaningful, with emotional depth and political bite. He brought in director Philip Kaufman, a respected filmmaker known for his cerebral approach and attention to character. At first, the pairing seemed promising. Kaufman could bring nuance, Eastwood would bring star power. But beneath the surface, tensions were already brewing. Eastwood valued speed and instinct. Kaufman favored detail and patience. And as the cameras rolled, their creative visions began to collide, hard. And that clash would soon turn into a full-blown war for control. Before the cameras even started rolling, there was a problem no one wanted to talk about: the book's author. The Outlaw Josey Wales was written by someone calling himself Forrest Carter. But that wasn't his real name. Behind the pen was Asa Earl Carter, a former segregationist speechwriter, white supremacist, and ex-Klan member who had completely reinvented himself as a novelist of Native American sympathy and frontier justice. This wasn't just an awkward footnote, it was radioactive. Philip Kaufman was deeply uncomfortable with the source material's origins. While the story itself could be interpreted as anti-establishment or even anti-war, its author's history cast a long shadow over the project. Kaufman wanted distance. He reportedly tried to strip away any elements that might tie the film too closely to Carter's past, reworking parts of the script and adjusting the tone. Eastwood? He didn't care. To him, the book was just a story. A damn good one. The politics of the author weren't going to derail a film he believed in. This difference in priorities, Kaufman thinking about public image and long-term reception, Eastwood focused purely on execution, put them on opposite sides from day one. But the author's past wasn't the only thing lurking in the background. The real battle was just beginning. Once filming began, it didn't take long for the cracks to show. Kaufman came in with a detailed shot list, methodical blocking, and a slow, deliberate pace. He treated the film like a character study, layered, introspective, and artful. But Eastwood wasn't interested in spending weeks on one scene. He was famously efficient, often wrapping shots in 1 or 2 takes. He knew what he wanted, and waiting around for extra lighting or another angle drove him crazy. Tension built quickly. Kaufman insisted on retakes. Eastwood refused. Kaufman wanted to explore subtext. Eastwood wanted to move on. Each day on set was like a silent standoff, creative control hanging in the balance, neither man willing to back down. Worse still, crew members began to pick sides. Some gravitated toward Eastwood's confident, no-nonsense style. Others respected Kaufman's artistic discipline. The mood on set turned icy, with quiet whispers replacing collaboration. And in the middle of it all, a film that was starting to feel more like a battleground than a movie. And then it got personal. Enter Sandra Locke. Eastwood had handpicked Locke for the role of Laura Lee, a key character in the film, and someone who would soon become a central figure in his personal life as well. Their chemistry was immediate and undeniable, both on screen and off. But Kaufman had reservations. He reportedly pushed back on Locke's casting, questioning whether she fit the role. Whether it was about performance or something more personal isn't entirely clear, but it didn't sit well with Eastwood. From that point on, the relationship between actor and director went from tense to toxic. Rumors swirled that Kaufman resented the closeness between Eastwood and Locke, and that Eastwood began deliberately undermining Kaufman's authority on set. Scenes were shot behind his back. Decisions were made without his input. At some point, it stopped being a creative disagreement and became a power struggle. And Eastwood had all the leverage. Then, in a move that shocked the cast and crew, Eastwood made a call that would change Hollywood history. He fired the director, mid-shoot, and took control himself. It didn't happen with a public outburst or dramatic showdown. There was no screaming match, no walk-off. But behind closed doors, Clint Eastwood made a decision that would stun the crew and rattle the industry. Philip Kaufman was out. Just like that. Eastwood had grown tired of what he saw as endless delays and creative micromanagement. In his eyes, the film was slipping away, mired in overthinking and studio politics. He didn't want an interpretation of Josey Wales. He wanted his version. So he pulled the trigger, using his clout as both producer and star to remove Kaufman from the director's chair. The studio didn't fight him. By that point, Eastwood was too powerful, and Kaufman, despite his talent, was expendable. Some in the cast and crew were shocked. Others quietly nodded. The tension on set had become unbearable, and Kaufman's firing felt like the release of a pressure valve. Without him, production moved faster, smoother, and more decisively. Eastwood stepped into the director's role with zero hesitation. He knew exactly what he wanted, and didn't waste a minute getting it. But it wasn't just a power move, it was a gamble. Eastwood had directed films before, but never under this much scrutiny, and never in the middle of someone else's production. If the movie flopped, he wouldn't just be blamed, he'd be blacklisted. And then there was Kaufman. He didn't go quietly. While he avoided a public smear campaign, those close to the situation say he felt blindsided and betrayed. He'd helped develop the script, cast the film, shape the tone, and now his name was being erased from a project he'd helped build. Hollywood had seen ego battles before, but this one hit differently. Because Eastwood didn't just replace a director. He exposed how vulnerable they really were. The Directors Guild of America was furious. To them, Eastwood's move wasn't just about creative differences, it was a direct attack on the sanctity of the director's role. In the film world, a director is supposed to be the ultimate creative authority. When a producer, or worse, an actor, can fire a director and take over, it sets a dangerous precedent. It sends a message that power, not vision, decides who leads a film. So, the Guild acted. First came the punishment. Warner Brothers was hit with a $60,000 fine for allowing the takeover. That stung, but not nearly as much as what came next. The Guild drafted a new regulation, a direct response to what had just happened. It became known unofficially as the Eastwood Rule. This new policy made it clear no actor or producer could fire a director mid-production and then step in as their replacement. The rule was designed to protect filmmakers from exactly the kind of behind-the-scenes power play Eastwood had just pulled off. It wasn't just about one movie. It was about drawing a line in the sand. From that moment on, every Hollywood director knew the Guild had their back, at least in theory. In reality, power dynamics didn't change overnight. Big stars and studios still called the shots. But the Eastwood incident forced the industry to confront a brutal truth. Creative authority could be bought, and loyalty had a price. And yet, even with the controversy, the fines, and the fallout, the movie still had one more surprise in store. With Kaufman gone and Eastwood at the helm, production on the Outlaw Josey Wales moved quickly, almost aggressively so. Eastwood finished the film under budget and ahead of schedule, exactly how he liked it. But when it finally hit theaters, something unexpected happened. The film was good, really good. Critics praised its depth, emotional weight, and moral complexity, qualities not often associated with traditional westerns. Eastwood's performance was lauded for its restraint, portraying Josey not just as a gunslinging outlaw, but as a haunted man scarred by war, betrayal, and loss. The film's stance on vengeance, loyalty, and the brutality of post-Civil War America resonated with audiences in a way that felt personal. It didn't just succeed, it redefined Eastwood. Josey Wales marked the beginning of a new era for him, not just as an actor, but as a serious filmmaker. He'd proven he could carry a film behind the camera without sacrificing story, tone, or emotional depth. And while the firing of Kaufman left a permanent stain on the film's history, it also solidified Eastwood's status as one of the most powerful creative forces in Hollywood. As for Kaufman, he bounced back. He went on to direct Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978, The Right Stuff, 1983, and several other acclaimed films. But Josey Wales remained a painful chapter, a film that could have been his signature work, but ended up being someone else's victory. And the Eastwood rule? It's still cited today, decades later. A quiet reminder to every actor, producer, and director. The balance of power in Hollywood is always shifting, but if you push too far, the industry pushes back. And yet, for Clint Eastwood, pushing boundaries became the very thing that made him unstoppable. In Hollywood, most people follow the rules. Clint Eastwood rewrote them. The Outlaw Josey Wales didn't just become a classic, it became a turning point. One director was fired, another legacy was born, and an entire industry had to ask itself, who really controls the story? Was Eastwood out of line, or just ahead of his time? One thing's certain, after this film, no one ever looked at a Western or a director's credit the same way again. And that quiet showdown behind the camera? It turned out to be more explosive than anything written in the script.